Let's take a breath together. Last year we spent the entire year dwelling in the land of plenty, developing our consciousness so that we could dwell in the land of plenty. And we are there, right? Yes. Okay, now that we are there, we're going to live there. Yes. And so life is for living. That's going to be our theme this month. This year. That's our theme all of the year. When I first got introduced to science of mind, 100 years ago, one of the first books I read was a little book by Eric Butterworth, who's a Unity minister, entitled Life is for Living. And I was so intrigued by the title that I just read it, and then I just read it really quickly, and it changed my life. It really did. It changed my life. It was like, wow, really? Is it that easy? Life is for living? That means that we don't just really have to struggle. We don't just really have to be down in the dumps. We don't have to be overtaken by the things that happen around us or the things that happen to us. When we recognize that life is for living, and when we recognize that life is a divine idea in the mind of God, life is a divine idea in the mind of God, a divine idea in the mind of God, and we get to experience and express that idea through our livingness. But we don't get to express it if we're not living, if we're being caught up in all the things that happen, as I said, around us and all the things that happen to us, then we're not really living life. And so what we want to do is to be in that place where we recognize that this divine idea is always seeking expression. It is always seeking a place of expression, a place where we can experience it, because life just is. And so what we're seeking is not an experience of life. We're seeking the isness of life. The isness of life. There's a difference, the isness of life. That means that life just is. It always is. There was no beginning and no end. It is eternal. And we are living in eternity right now. We're living in eternity right now. Breathe that in. We're living in eternity right now. Why are we wasting it? Why are we wasting time? Why are we wasting our lives? Why are we just allowing it to just flow right on by us? Because there's no place for it to express in and through and as each one of us. And so this year I'm going to be encouraging us to really look at how we can really practice that and show that we know and that we are aware of the fact that life is for living. Life is for living, and life just is. Life is like electricity. Electricity just is. It's just there. And it doesn't, because we aren't using it, doesn't mean it isn't there. Because we only have a 15-watt bulb doesn't mean that there's a shortage of electricity. We could have a 15-watt bulb, or we could have a stadium full of floodlights. And it is available to us according to our use of it. If we turn the switch off in this room now and there are no lights in here, that doesn't mean there isn't any electricity. It just means we aren't utilizing it. And so when we are not living a full and a complete and an abundant life, it doesn't mean that life isn't abundant, that life is not. It just means that we aren't utilizing it, and that we aren't taking more than a thimble to be that place that can be filled with life, that can express life through each one of us and as each one of us. And so I'm going to ask you this year to keep opening up, keep in that place of awareness that life is for living, and prove that each and every day, each and every moment of each and every day. This month, our theme is just say yes. Just say yes. And we get to experience life through our livingness by our yes. By our yes. By our yes. That's not yeah, but. There's a difference. Yeah, but doesn't count. It doesn't count at all, because the but negates the yes. So it's yes, and yes, and yes. And the more we say yes, there are so many ways that we say yes. The more we say yes, the more we open up to that divine idea that is life itself. The more of an opening we become, and the more life can be expressed in and through and as us. You know, once I read that book, Life is for Living, and Ernest Holmes was constantly telling me, change your thinking, change your life. Wow. Then that meant, oh, it's up to me. Oh, it's up to me. I can just change my thinking and change my life. And that's what the basis of our teaching is. The teaching of Science of Mind is change your thinking, change your life. And that's what is available to each one of us. Change your thinking, change your life. And Holmes says it is not always easy to give up the pain and the poverty and the pain of your life, or the hurt of the human existence, in favor of that which is perfect. But we can do that through changing our thinking. It's not always easy to do that. It sounds easy. Change your thinking, change your life. Change your thinking, change your life. That sounds really simple, doesn't it? Well, it is simple. Sounds easy, doesn't it? It isn't. It isn't. And Holmes recognized that. And he's saying that to the degree that we can do things gradually, that we can make gradual changes, that we can make gradual movement forward, so long as it's not hurting anyone else or taking anything away from anyone else, then we are going in the right direction. We're moving in the right direction, and that's how we get to living our lives like we know that life is for living. And that's how we get to yes. That's how we get to yes. Yes, we say yes in so many ways. Let's take a breath. That's one way of saying yes. Because what yes means is that we're giving permission to something. We're granting permission. We're granting an opening. And so when we take a breath, we are creating an opening, a space through which life can express. And God is life itself. And whether you choose to call it God or spirit or life or higher power or whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change that divine intelligence that is my very life and is the life of each one of us. It doesn't matter what you call it. You don't have to call it anything. But just know that that divine presence within us that I choose to call God is always seeking expression. And to the degree that we can say yes and open up and grant it permission, then we get into that place where our lives are full, our lives are complete. And whether or not we are living full and complete lives or whether we're living restricted and limited lives, that's up to us. And as much as we'd like to blame it on external circumstances or other people or situations or things beyond our control, it doesn't change the fact that life is. It doesn't change the fact that God is. It doesn't change the fact that that isness is always available to each one of us according to our own availability to it. Our own availability to it. And so this month we are really looking at our yes. We're looking at our yes. We say yes through surrendering. That's a scary word, isn't it? Surrendering our control, our need to control, our need to know what's going to happen next, our need to manage our lives, our need to manage people around us, our need to change people around us. Isn't that a big one? And it's always funny because we can't do it and we don't ever recognize that we can't. We just keep trying. And then one day we get that the only thing we need to change is ourselves. And when we change, then everybody else does. Isn't that magic? When we change, the other circumstances change. When we change, then the world seems different. Wonder how that happened. It's called consciousness. It's called consciousness. I talk a lot about consciousness. Consciousness is all there is. And I say that over and over again in every way I know how in English. Consciousness is all there is. And we experience life according to our own consciousness. And so that's what we have to keep in mind as we go through this whole process of our yes, our surrendering. We also say yes through kindness. 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 That's a way of saying yes. We say yes through our cooperation. Through our cooperation rather than our competitiveness. Because in order to be competitive, you got to be closed up. You got to be ready to fight. You got to be ready to win. You got to be all that stuff. Whereas we move into that space of cooperation, recognizing that this is a cooperative universe that we live in, You know, the moon and the sun don't compete, right? They don't compete. The moon comes up when it's supposed to, the sun comes up when it's supposed to. That's the way, that's the natural law. That's the way nature works. The birds don't compete when they're flying in a perfect pattern. They don't bump into each other trying to see who's going to go first. They don't fall all out of the sky. They just get into that perfect pattern because there's a divine intelligence within them that knows exactly what that perfect pattern looks like. And that divine intelligence is within each one of us, and it knows what we are supposed to look like, what our lives are supposed to look like, how our lives are supposed to be. And so when we recognize that, and we move into that space of cooperation, knowing that it doesn't matter if I get ahead of you or you get ahead of me, that we're all a part of the same, and we're all going in the same direction. That's not to say that there aren't things that we want to do and things that we want to accomplish and things that we want to do very, very well and be excellent at and win awards and do all that. And we can do that without knocking somebody else out. We can do that with an open heart. We can do that with an open mind. We can do that in the spirit of cooperation rather than competitiveness. We can do that in a spirit of oneness rather than in a spirit of them and us. And so, as we move into that place of cooperation, I said open-heartedness, that's another way of saying yes with an open heart. It's pretty hard to say yes with a closed heart. And I'm telling you, if your heart is closed in one place, it's closed in another. Because a closed heart is a closed heart. And you may feel like, well, my heart's just closed over here to this person, but it's really open to all these people over here. Well, really? What about this space over here? If your heart is closed in one place, a closed heart is a closed heart. And so I'm inviting you to look today at if there's any place that you have a closed heart against anyone. I don't care who it is. It may be somebody you know or somebody you don't know or somebody who is a world figure or whatever. A closed heart is a closed heart. And having an open heart here on Sunday mornings or when you're here on this campus is wonderful. But it doesn't count for an open heart, a totally open heart. And so I invite you to look at saying yes with an open heart and an open mind. And an open mind. We also say yes with consistency and I want to say constancy. Consistency, there's another word that's not coming, but it means constant. So that's another way that we have a yes with consistency. We have a yes with order. Bless you. We have a yes with order. Where there's order around us, there's a space, there's a place, there's a space for things. And in that order, Spirit works. In that order, God shows up. In that order, there's a space for God to do its thing in and through and as each one of us, simply by our yes. And so I'm inviting you today to take inventory. Take inventory of your life. At the beginning of the year, you know how we do that? We set all these goals and do all these resolutions. And I stopped doing that years ago, but we do those. And we do have I'll call them goals that we set for things we want to accomplish in the year. But so I'm asking you to take inventory, see where you are, see what it is that you may be afraid of that's holding you back. See what it is you've always wanted to do and you've been afraid to do it. See what it is that's really calling you forth and you're afraid to move, either out of fear or you're procrastinating or you're just making excuses or just not doing it. Assess that. See what that is. See what those things are. And then take a deep breath and say yes to them. Take a deep breath and say yes to them. Oftentimes we are afraid to say yes because we don't know where it's going to lead us. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know whether we can do it when we get there. We don't know how to do that. We don't know all the stuff that we don't know. But do you know that there's a divine intelligence within each one of us that beats our hearts, that circulates our blood, that breathes us each and every moment of each and every day? And that divine intelligence knows how to manage the circumstances of our lives. also. Imagine that. Isn't that something? That same intelligence that beats our hearts and circulates our blood and breathes us knows how to manage the circumstances in our lives and how to move us through those areas that we have no idea how to get through. How to accomplish those things that we want to accomplish that we have no idea how to do it. That's because the how is none of our business. The how is none of our business. The what is what we want to know. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to do? Not, oh my gosh, don't let your what be determined by the how. Don't let your what be determined by the how, because the how is none of your business. God knows the how. All you got to do is say yes. And once you say yes, fasten your seatbelts. Once you say yes, fasten your seatbelts. And we have those seatbelts right here with our spiritual tools, our spiritual practices, our spiritual principles. Those are the things that keep us that keep us from falling off the wagon. Those are the things that keep us in check. Those are the things that keep us moving forward with even when the road gets bumpy. Because just because we're following, just because we're saying yes, doesn't mean that we're going to have a bump-free life. No, it can get pretty shaky sometimes. It can get pretty scary sometimes. It can get pretty bumpy sometimes. But we know that there's that within each one of us that guides us, that directs us, that keeps us safe when the bumps come, that keeps us safe when the storms come, that keeps us safe when the winds and the rains come. There's that within us that's doing that always. And all we have to do is trust it. And all we have to do is say yes to it. And all we have to do is say yes to it again. And just keep going deeper with our yes, and keep going deeper with our yes, and keep going deeper with our yes. And sometimes that's what we really have to do, because the winds and the rains sometimes get pretty scary. Sometimes get pretty scary in our lives. Things that we don't know how to control, things that we don't know how to manage, things that come up, and we call them sickness, or we call them death, or we call them financial ruin, or we call them relationship problems, or we call them divorce, or we have all kinds of names for them. But what it amounts to is dis-ease. Dis-ease. And so when dis-ease comes up in our lives, it gets pretty shaky. But you know, the scripture has told us that when we build our house on the rock, solid rock, and not on shifting sand, then that's when we are anchored in the Spirit and anchored in the presence. It didn't say that you're not going to have storms. It didn't say that there won't be high winds and hurricanes and all kinds of stuff. It just says that be anchored in that which is real. Be anchored in that which is real, and that's how we live our lives. That's how we get into that place of knowing that life is for the living. That's how we get into that place of being able to put one foot in front of the other, and one foot in front of the other, and one foot in front of the other, and one foot in front of the other, knowing that there is that has already gone before us, making straight our way. And all we have to do is follow along in those footsteps that have been created for us as the Spirit goes before us, making straight our way. That's what yes does for us. Because yes puts us in that place of trust. It puts us in that place of knowing. It puts us in that place of shifting our consciousness to the place where we know that all is well. We know that all is well. Where we know that all is well, and we can just keep moving forward and keep allowing ourselves to be moved forward. So I'm inviting you to really move into that place of consistency, move into that place of order, move into that place of yes this month. Starting this month. You don't stop it after the month ends. We're going to talk about it this month, but we're going to continue to live it each and every moment of each and every day and see how our lives take off. See how our lives take off. See how things are healed in our lives. See how our lives change. See how things get so much bigger and so much better. And not being afraid of that. Not being afraid of that. And so I'm encouraging you to really take that inventory. Really take that inventory and see, what is it that I have been resisting? I haven't been wanting to say yes to. and then just put on your spiritual seatbelts, start to practice the principles, start to really engage in the 7 practices that we have here. Those are some of the spiritual tools that we have, the 7 practices: meditation, visioning, spiritual mind treatment, visualization, tithing, service, and I left one off: affirmations. 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 That's something we didn't talk about last year. We went through, I think, 5 of the spiritual practices last year, 7 practices last year. Affirmations was something we didn't really talk about. We didn't really get into. Affirmations are really, 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 really helpful and powerful in helping us to change our thinking. If you want to change your thinking, start to use affirmations. I know that life is for living. I know that life is for living. If you can't get there, if you can't get to life is for living and really start to believe that, because affirmations are more than just spouting off words. You know, it's the believability, it's the feeling that we have that makes the change. It's not the words themselves, it's the feeling that we put into it, the thought and the feeling that we put into the affirmations that make them really work and make them powerful and make them change our lives. And so when we get into affirmations, Ernest Holmes says that it is the feeling and the emotion that makes creation, that creates the life that we want. And so when we move into that place of using affirmations, life is for living, that we can say that all day, and if you don't have any feeling around it, you don't really believe it, then you don't live it. So I believe that life is for living. I believe that life is for living. I say yes to life is another affirmation. I say yes to life. And you know what? If you can't get there and really feel that, here's a little tip for doing affirmations. Start to use words or groups of words that help you to get to that place of feeling. I'm beginning to believe that life is for living. I've started to believe that life is for living. More and more, I'm believing that life is for living. More and more, I'm beginning to say yes to life. Each and every day, I say yes to life. I have begun to believe that I can say yes to life. Do you see the difference in that? Because that's the words that are coming up, that's a way of tipping up on it. You know, just kind of sneaking up on it. When you can't really get there and say an affirmation and really believe it because you're just saying words for rote. I'm beginning to believe. I'm beginning to say yes to life. I'm beginning to know that it's okay for me to say yes to life. That's an affirmation. We use affirmations all the time, throughout our lives, throughout our day. Use those that really work for us. Use those about the things that we want. And when we start to use those affirmations for whatever it is we want, I'm beginning to say yes to life. More and more, I'm saying yes to life. And really beginning to feel that. That's how we get a consciousness shift. That's how our thinking changes, our consciousness shifts, and our experience begins to change. Because we want to become so attractive that the desires of our hearts can't stay away from us. We want to be so attractive that the things that we want in life can't stay away. They just keep pouring in. Keep pouring in, keep pouring in, because we're so attractive, it can't stay away. Just like the treatment of supply says, the things that those who I can benefit and those who can benefit me are irresistibly drawn toward me. And that's what we want to have happen in our lives. We want good to be irresistibly drawn toward us. We want good to be irresistibly drawn toward us. And you know what? Our birthright is to experience all good things. All of the good. That's our birthright. We are told that from the beginning that all that the Father hath is mine. All that the Father hath is mine. All. It didn't say some. It said all that the Father hath is mine. If that is true, and I believe it is, then where's the all in my life? What do I need to do to open up so that I can experience this allness and this fullness that is God? We do that with our yes. We do that with our yes. We do that by taking a breath, taking a step back, giving up our resistance, giving up our need to control, giving up our need to know everything, giving up our need to do anything but say yes. And mind you, saying yes does not mean that we say yes to everything, that we are not setting boundaries that need to be set. It doesn't mean that there are times when we don't say no. It's just that when we do say no, we say no with an open heart. We say no without resistance. We say no without animosity. We say no in ways that keep us in that place of oneness, keep us in that place of possibility, keep us in that place of openness. Because when we're either saying yes or no. When we're saying yes to some things, we're saying no to others. When we're saying no to some things, we're saying yes to others. So being real clear about what it is you want in your life. Being real clear about how you want to live your life. Being real clear about all of that. And the more clarity that we have around what we really want and how we want our lives to look and what life is for living means to each one of us, means that we can say yes and know that yes is a complete sentence, and we can say no and know that no is a complete sentence. But we say it all with the same consciousness of oneness. We say it all with the same consciousness of love. We say it all with the same consciousness of openness. We say it all with the same awareness that life is, and life is for living for each one of us. And so I invite you to really, really, really practice saying yes. Saying yes. And if there's something that comes up that you really don't want to do, somebody asks you to do something, you feel guilty if you don't do it, and all that stuff we get into, say no. Because what you're doing then is saying yes to yourself. You're saying yes to yourself. And don't let anybody tell you that's selfish, because there's nothing wrong with that. But you're saying yes to yourself because you know that which is for your highest and for your best, and only you know that. Only you know the consciousness with which you say things and you do things and you act. And so I invite you all to really, really be awake. Wake up. This is 2020. Wake up. Wake up. Let's say yes. Let's go for this thing called life. And let's realize that we don't have an unlimited amount of tomorrows. We don't have an unlimited amount of tomorrows. We got to start right here and right now living our lives, because life is for living. And we got to start right here and right now by saying what? Yes. And what? Yes. I say it one more time. Yes. All right. We say yes. Let's take a breath on that. Oh, how grateful I am to hear this resounding yes, this unfettered yes, this yes that is not being blocked in any way or encumbered in any way. This yes that is full and that is complete. Because every time we say yes, we're saying yes to the all that is. We're saying yes to the power and the presence of God that is moving in and through and as each one of us, living its life in and through and as each one of us, because our yes creates that opening. And so knowing this truth, that there's that one power, that one presence, that one mind, that one life, that one breath that breathes each one of us, that one that lives and moves and has its being in each one of us. Knowing this truth, I know that this one is my very life. I know that this one is the life of each of us here this day, that we each live and move and have our being in the one. And so from this place of awareness, I speak this word for each one of us this day. I say yes for all of us. Yes to open hearts. Yes to open minds. Yes to open beings. And as we open up, I know that total healing happens in every area, every aspect of our being. Healing in our body temples, healing in our bodies of affairs, healing in our relationships, healing wherever there's anything that appears to be out of alignment, there's healing that happens. as we release and let go of the fear and the doubt and the anxiety and the things that would hold us back, and we open ourselves up and just say, yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God. And then we breathe into that yes, and we walk around and through this life in a consciousness of yes, and yes, and yes. And so this word goes out to anyone needing a prayer this day. If there's anyone you'd like held in prayer this day, you may speak their name silently or loud. You may speak them now. So for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that God is right where each of them is, blessing and keeping them. God is. In the midst of every circumstance, every situation, God is. God is. We breathe into that isness that is God right here and right now. Always saying yes to it. Always giving thanks for it. We say yes to peace on earth. We say yes to peace and to harmony and to balance and to joy and to forgiveness and to peace of mind. We say yes to oneness as we let go of any sense of separation from God, from each other. Anything that would separate, we let it go. We say yes. Thank you, Father, Mother God. Thank you, Infinite Presence. Thank you, Divine Mother. I just allow it to be. And so it is.